Spain, it's pretty much the gold standard for retirement dreams, isn't it?
It really is. You think Spain, you think sunshine, great food.
Exactly. Endless sunshine, those long, lazy lunches, and a quality of life that well, it consistently ranks right up there globally.
Mm,
For a lot of our listeners, especially maybe folks in the US or Northern Europe, it just feels like this chance to make retirement savings go further.
definitely. While enjoying, arguably better infrastructure, amazing food, and maybe a bit less stress day to day.
It is the dream, yes.
Mhm.
But look, getting from dreaming about tapas on the Costa del Sol to actually living there legally, comfortably,
Mm.
that takes some serious planning.
Oh, absolutely. That's the gap we're bridging today, isn't it? The transition from those sunny statistics to the actual, sometimes messy bureaucratic reality. That's our focus.
Right. So our mission in this deep dive is really for the non-EU citizen planning that retirement. We're going to try and cut through the glossy brochures
Yeah, get past the highlights.
and focus on the essentials, the stuff that can trip you up. How much money do you really need beyond just the rent?
Crucial question.
What are the visa requirements looking like for 2025? They seem pretty strict.
They are. And they're specific.
And then the big ones. Healthcare and taxes. What's the real picture once you're actually a resident?
And we've pulled together quite a bit of material for this. We're looking at official Spanish government sources, the Ministry of Health, the DGT for driving rules,
So the official line.
the official line,
Yeah.
exactly. But we've also got financial expert advice and, maybe most valuably, those on-the-ground cost estimates from expats who are actually doing it right now.
Okay, that's good. Because you need both, don't you? The rules and the reality check.
You absolutely do. You need the letter of the law and the sort of anecdotal truth to get the full picture.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's start with the why. Why Spain, despite all these potential hurdles?
Well, the appeal is just undeniable.
Yeah.
And it really starts with lifestyle and, frankly, the economics. Our sources are pretty clear. The overall cost of living, when you factor in rent and what you spend day to day, it's almost 31% lower than in the U.S.
31%. That's huge.
It's a massive difference.
Yeah.
That single fact means your retirement savings suddenly have, well, a much longer life expectancy.
And it's not just cheaper, is it? That 31% figure, it goes hand in hand with a higher quality of life in many ways.
That's the key point. We're talking walkable cities, really efficient public transport, which is a big deal for retirees,
Oh, yeah.
and a public health system that's, internationally recognized.
Mhm.
High quality and generally pretty accessible, though we'll get into the specifics of how accessible later.
You're right. So you're not just saving money, you're potentially buying into a better standard of living for less.
Exactly. Then you layer on the climate and the food. You just can't overlook the psychological boost from that Mediterranean climate.
Especially down south, right? Costa del Sol.
Precisely. Costa del Sol, places like that, you're looking at over 300 days of sunshine a year.
Mm-hmm.
Combine that with the slower pace, the tranquilo lifestyle,
Mhm.
and honestly, some of the world's healthiest and most affordable food. It makes a very, very compelling case.
I think for many North Americans, maybe another big draw, besides the obvious culture, is how relatively easy it can feel to integrate compared to some other European spots.
That's true, up to a point.
I mean, yes, there's a language barrier we need to talk about, but the
Yeah.
infrastructure is modern, right? And there are huge established expat communities in many areas.
Definitely, which means you don't necessarily feel isolated. And
Yeah.
that's huge when you're making a big life change like retiring abroad.
Okay, so that's the sunny side, the dream. Now let's pivot. Let's talk about the roadblocks, the reality check.
Right, the cons, if you will. And the number one complaint, you see this everywhere in every expat forum, is the bureaucracy. It can be challenging.
Challenging is a polite word, isn't it? I hear cripplingly complex sometimes.
That's probably more accurate for some
Yeah.
experiences, yeah. Getting your residence card, your NIE number, will explain those dealing with any official admin. It can be frustrating, seem opaque, and just take a long time.
And this is where that language barrier really bites, right?
Exactly. Connects directly to the bureaucratic headache. Spain has one of the lowest rates of English fluency in Europe.
Really? Lower than you might think.
Surprisingly low in many areas. So if you're outside the main expat hubs, think parts of the Costa del Sol, Alicante, maybe certain neighborhoods in Madrid or Barcelona,
Yeah.
then simple everyday tasks like calling the electric company or dealing with the local town hall, they're going to require at least basic Spanish. Or you'll need to hire help, like a jester.
A jester, that's like a local administrator or fixer.
Pretty much, yeah. someone who knows the system and can navigate it for you, for a fee, of course.
So if you plan to just get by on English, you're basically choosing to limit yourself geographically.
Consciously limiting yourself, yes. Often to the more expensive areas, too. And that brings us neatly to roadblock number 3, real estate inflation.
Ah, yes. We said overall costs are lower, but property, that's a different story in some places.
It is. We have to be clear about this. While your groceries might be cheaper, the demand for Spanish property, both from international buyers and Spaniards moving around, has pushed prices up dramatically.
Especially where everyone wants to be, I imagine. Coasts, big cities.
Exactly. Prime coastal spots, popular parts of Madrid and Barcelona. That initial dream of super affordable living can start to, well, evaporate if your heart is set on, say, central Barcelona or a villa in Marbella.
So it impacts not just maybe buying, but rents too.
Oh, absolutely. High purchase prices drive up rents. It affects your initial budget and the long-term maths of making your savings last. It's a classic supply and demand issue in the most desirable spots.
Okay, so location is clearly critical. Given this huge variation in cost and maybe lifestyle, where do our sources suggest looking? Where's the sweet spot?
Well, there seems to be a consensus favorite emerging, particularly in recent years, Valencia.
Valencia?
Yeah.
Interesting. Why Valencia?
It was actually named the best city in the world to retire by Live and Invest Overseas. And the reason seems to be balance.
Balance how?
It offers a more reasonable cost base than Madrid or Barcelona. It's got vibrant culture, great city services, beaches right there.
And connections. Easy to get in and out.
Crucially, yes, excellent airport, high-speed rail links. So you get a lot of the big city benefits without those truly astronomical real estate prices. It seems to hit a sweet spot for many.
But okay, some people do want that maximum city experience, right? Culture on tap, endless things to do.
Absolutely. And for them, it's the big two, Madrid and Barcelona. They offer the absolute premium experience, non-stop energy in Madrid, that incredible Gaudi architecture and beach combo in Barcelona.
But you pay for it.
You definitely pay for it. Our sources suggest a couple budgeting somewhere between 2,000 euros and 2,800 a month just for living expenses in those cities. That's a significant jump.
Okay. What about those chasing the sun, primarily? The classic Costa retirement.
Right, the coastal havens. Think Costa del Sol, Costa Blanca. These generally fall into a moderate cost bracket, sort of between Valencia and the big cities.
And specific places people favor.
Malaga itself is often mentioned. It's one of the oldest cities in the world, has a fantastic, really well-connected airport, which is great for visits home. And it's only about an hour from glamorous and very expensive Marbella.
So Malaga is maybe a good base.
It can be. Then you have towns like Benalmádena, Millas, Peníscola, highlighted quite often. They tend to cater heavily to expats, lots of activities, clubs, that sort of thing. Attractive, but again, you're often competing with international buyers, which keeps prices firm.
So if the absolute #1 priority is making those retirement funds stretch as far as humanly possible,
Then you head for what we're calling the affordable gems. Basically, get away from the major cities and the most heavily touristed coastlines.
where are we talking geographically?
Think about the beautiful green Spain, up north, Galicia, Asturias, Cantabria, or head inland to the more rural areas. Costs drop dramatically in these places.
How dramatically?
We're seeing estimates suggesting a couple's total monthly spend could be as low as, say, 890 to maybe 1,590.
Wow, that's a huge difference from Madrid.
It's massive.
Yeah.
But there's a trade-off, obviously. You're trading that easy access to English-speaking services and maybe some conveniences for serious savings. You'll likely need Spanish, and a car becomes essential.
That range, though, 890 euros up to 2,800 euro a month, it just hammers home how much location drives everything in your financial planning for Spain.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
let's dive deeper into those numbers. We mentioned a general comfortable retirement needing maybe 1,500 to 2,500 a month, depending on where you land.
Right. Rural versus city living.
And the absolute biggest variable, the hinge on which that whole budget swings, is housing.
Okay, let's get specific. How wide is that housing cost range? Give us some examples.
It's really significant. Okay, renting. A decent, but maybe not huge, one-bedroom apartment right in the center of Madrid. You could easily be looking at 900 to 1,500 a month.
Ouch.
Yeah. But move to a good secondary city like Valencia or Malaga, or even a suburb of Madrid, and a similar place might drop into the 500 to 750 range.
That's already a huge saving.
It is. And then if you go really rural, like we talked about up north or deep inland, you might find simple, clean apartments for 300 to 600 euro.
So right there, whether you budget 500 or 1500 per zern for rent, basically decides maybe half your monthly spend.
Pretty much. It's the biggest lever you can pull on your budget.
Okay, what about buying? For those thinking longer term, there's a hidden cost there, isn't there? Something people often miss.
Oh, absolutely. This catches so many people out.
Yeah.
When you buy property in Spain, whether it's a little apartment on the Costa Blanca starting around, say, $120,000, or a city flat, you must budget extra for the associated costs.
On top of the purchase price.
Yes. Typically, you need to add another 10% to 13% of the property price.
Wow. What does that cover?
It covers the property transfer tax. That's the Impuesto de Transmisión Patrimoniales, or ITP, plus notary fees, and the fees for registering the property in your name. If you don't account for that 10–13%, your whole buying budget can just fall apart.
That's a crucial heads up, and the price per square meter really shows that location difference too, doesn't it?
It does. We saw figures like Madrid averaging close to €5,000 per square meter,
Right?
whereas you could find somewhere nice, but maybe less central, like Miraflores de la Sierra, still near Madrid, but up in the mountains for maybe closer to 2,100 per square meter. Huge difference.
Okay, so housing is the big one. Let's move past that. Daily expenses, food. This is where Spain really shines, right? Value and quality.
Genuinely, yes. This is a major plus. A basic monthly grocery shop for two people. You're looking at a pretty manageable $250 to $350 on average.
That sounds incredibly low for good quality stuff. You mentioned an anecdote from an expat family.
Yeah, there was a great little detail in the sources. An expat family, 5 people living just north of Malaga. They reported spending only about €300 a month on groceries.
For 5 people.
For 5 people. And they specifically pointed out how much cheaper fresh fruit, vegetables, local fish, and olive oil were compared to what they were used to in the UK.
So shopping like a local pays off? Markets, seasonal produce?
Massively. If you adapt your shopping habits, you can eat really well, a varied, high-quality diet for 2 people for probably €350 to €500 a month. Absolute maximum.
And a big part of the lifestyle eating out, it's more accessible, right? Not always a big splurge.
That's the beauty of the menu del dia.
Ah, the menu of the day. Explain that.
It's fantastic, usually offered weekdays at lunchtime. It's typically a set price, 3 courses starter, main, dessert, often including a drink like wine or water, all for maybe 10 to 15 grand.
Seriously, 10-15 for a full lunch with a drink.
Yep. It makes eating out regularly totally doable. Even outside of that, a decent mid-range meal for one person in the evening might only run you 25 to 35.
Okay, so food is a win. What about utilities? I hear this can be a bit of a surprise for people.
This is definitely an area where people can get a bit of sticker shock, especially coming from North America maybe. Energy costs in Spain are relatively high.
Even with the milder climate.
Even with the climate. Yes, the monthly averages for a small place might look okay on paper, maybe €50 for electricity, 20–35 for water, but the actual price per kilowatt hour for electricity and the cost of gas for heating or hot water, it's quite high.
So if you need a lot of air conditioning in summer or heating in winter.
Exactly. If you're in an older building that's maybe not well insulated or you really rely on heating and cooling, those energy bills can climb. We saw figures suggesting a family of 4 could potentially see bills over €200 a month.
Oof. Okay, so something to definitely budget carefully for. Energy isn't cheap.
Not particularly, no. You need to be mindful of it.
On the plus side, getting around cities is generally great and affordable.
Oh, absolutely fantastic. Public transport is excellent in most cities and towns. A monthly pass is usually around 35 to 45 euros. A single bus or metro ticket is cheap, like 1.50 to 2.50.
So in Madrid or Barcelona, maybe ditch the car.
Honestly, in the big cities, not having a car is probably the smartest, cheapest, least stressful option.
But if you choose one of those lovely, affordable rural spots.
Then a car becomes pretty much essential, yeah. Yeah. And this brings us to another one of those slightly quirky, bureaucratic things that can cost you money if you're not aware.
What's that?
The legally required kit you have to carry in your car.
Okay.
So besides the usual costs, fuel, which is maybe 1.50 or $2 a liter, annual road tax, $3,200 depending on the car, insurance, 250, 500 euros a year maybe. Spanish law is super strict about safety gear.
Like what?
You must carry 2 approved warning triangles, not 1, 2.
2 triangles. Okay.
Complete spare set of bulbs and fuses for your car's lights.
Oh, wow. Okay.
A spare wheel and the tools to change it, or an official tire repair kit. And this is the one people often forget, a reflective, high-visibility jacket or vest.
A high-vis jacket. You have to carry that.
Yes. And it needs to be accessible from inside the car, not just in the boot.
Yeah.
If you get stopped by the Guardia Civil or local police and you're missing any of those items, even just a vest or one triangle, it could be an on-the-spot fine,
How much?
up to 500 euro.
For missing a spare bulb.
Potentially, yes. They take road safety seriously. So it's a small detail, but it shows you need to pay attention to the rules.
Okay, that's a good example. If you need to worry about having two triangles in the boot, you can probably guess the next bit, actually getting the visa, is going to be complex too.
You guessed right. That bureaucratic mindset, it starts before you even set foot in Spain.
All right, the big one for non-EU citizens, the visa. What's the main route for retirees?
Okay, for pretty much all non-EU retirees wanting to live in Spain long-term without working, the primary pathway is the non-lucrative visa, or NLV.
Non-lucrative. The name says it all, right?
It does. It's specifically designed for people who have sufficient means to support themselves and any dependents without needing to work in Spain. This is absolutely critical. The NLV explicitly forbids you from undertaking any professional activity.
So, no working at all, not even remote work for a company back home.
Technically, no. The spirit and letter of the law is that you are there to live off passive income or savings, not to engage in employment, even remotely. It's a gray area some people try to navigate, but the visa condition itself is clear. No work authorization.
Okay, crystal clear. You need to be financially self-sufficient from passive sources, and the bar for proving that is high, especially the 2025 requirements.
Very high. It's tied to a Spanish benchmark called the IPREM.
IPRE, let's break that down. What is it?
IPRE stands for Indicador Público de Renta de Efectos Múltiples. Basically, it's Spain's official measure for determining economic self-sufficiency for various benefits, and crucially, for visas like the NLV.
And the requirement is based on a multiple of this IPREM.
Correct. For the main applicant for the NLV, you need to prove you have ongoing funds or sufficient savings equivalent to 400% of the annual IPREM.
400%. What does that translate to in actual euros for 2025?
For 2025, 400% of the IPM works out to a minimum requirement of 28,800 per year. Or you need to show you have 2,400 coming in each month.
Okay, 28,800 for one person. What if you're a couple or have kids?
It goes up. For each additional dependent spouse, child, you need to prove an extra 100% of the IPR.
So another 7,200 per person per year.
Exactly. So a couple needs to show 28,800 plus 7,200, which is 36,000 annually.
And a family of four.
That would be the main applicant. 20,800 plus 3 dependents.
Yeah.
3x 7,200 euro, 21,600. So a total of 50,400 per hour per year you need to demonstrate.
Wow. That's a substantial amount. It's clearly designed to ensure people aren't going to be a drain on the state.
That's precisely the intention. It's a significant financial hurdle.
What counts as proof? Does it have to be cash in the bank? What about pensions or investments?
It doesn't have to be solely liquid cash, although having a good amount in savings certainly helps show stability. The key is that the income must be demonstrably passive and legally accessible in Spain.
So things like
Government pensions, private pensions, income from rental properties, annuities, regular documented withdrawals from investment accounts, like, say, an IRA or a 401k in the U.S.
and you need solid proof.
Oh, yes. Bank statements going back maybe 6-12 months, official pension award letters, investment portfolio statements, rental contracts, and proof of rent payments. A common reason for rejection is failing to clearly prove the income source is passive and reliable long-term.
Okay. Let's talk about the application process itself. You mentioned it starts before you go to Spain.
Absolutely. This is non-negotiable. You must apply for the non-lucrative visa from the Spanish consulate or embassy that has jurisdiction over your place of residence in your home country.
You can't just fly to Spain as a tourist and apply from there.
Definitely not. Attempting that is a guaranteed way to fail. You apply from home, get the visa sticker in your passport, then you travel to Spain.
And the paperwork, I'm guessing it's extensive.
It is, and it needs to be meticulously prepared. Key documents, like your birth certificate, marriage certificate if applicable, police clearance reports, financial proofs, they generally need to be officially legalized.
Legalized? What does that mean?
For most countries, like the US, UK, Canada, Australia, it means getting an apostille. It's an internationally recognized certification from your government verifying the authenticity of the document. It's like an official global stamp of approval.
Okay, apostille. That sounds like a process in itself.
It can take time and money, yes. And then there's the translation hurdle.
Ah, right. Everything needs to be in Spanish.
Yes, and not just any Spanish translation. All your key supporting documents must be translated into Spanish by an official sworn translator, a traductor jurado.
Sworn translator, so not just Google Translate or a friend who speaks Spanish.
Absolutely not. Sworn translators are certified by the Spanish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Their translations have legal standing. Using a non-sworn translation for your official documents will get your application bounced immediately.
Okay, apostilles, sworn translations. This sounds like you really need to plan months ahead.
Easily. Just gathering the documents, getting them apostilled, finding and paying for sworn translations, it can take several months before you're even ready to submit the application. And it costs money up front, with no guarantee of approval.
Which suggests that maybe getting professional help is a good idea. An immigration lawyer or one of those stores.
For many people, especially if you want peace of mind or your situation is slightly complex, it's highly recommended. Consulates are known for being very strict. They look for reasons to reject applications that aren't perfect.
What are common mistakes people make?
Things like the private health insurance policy not meeting the exact coverage requirements, we'll get to that, or the police clearance certificate not covering the specific time period required, usually the last 5 years, or the financial documents not being clear enough. A small investment in expert advice upfront can save a lot of time, money, and heartache later.
Okay, let's fast forward. You've navigated the bureaucracy, your visa is approved, you land in Spain. What happens next? Does the paperwork stop?
Unfortunately, no.
Mhm.
Once you arrive with your NLV visa sticker, the clock starts ticking again.
Yeah.
You generally have 1 month to take care of 2 crucial first steps.
Only 1 month. What are they?
You need to get your NIE and apply for your tie.
Okay, more acronyms. NIE and TIE. What's the difference?
Think of it this way. The NIE, Número de Identidad de Extranjero, is your foreigner identification number. It's just a number, like a tax ID number. You need it for almost everything official. Opening a bank account, paying taxes, setting up utilities, buying property. Getting the number itself usually involves an appointment and a small fee, maybe 11 euro.
Okay, so NIE is the number. What's the TIE?
The Tarjeta de Identidad de Extranjero is the physical foreigner identity card. This is your actual residence permit card. You must apply for this in person, usually at a designated police station or foreigner's office, within that first month of arrival. This card proves your legal residency status.
And the initial visa is for how long?
The initial NLV visa lets you stay for 1 year. After that first year, you apply to renew your residency, typically for 2-year periods. Renew again. And after 5 continuous years of legal residency, you can usually apply for long-term or permanent residency.
Okay, so NIE number first, then TIE card application within a month. Got it. Now, banking. You mentioned needing the NIE for a bank account. Is opening an account tricky?
It's essential, really. You need a Spanish bank account to manage bills easily, set up direct debits, and avoid potential foreign transaction fees. But there's a distinction our sources highlighted between non-resident and resident accounts. You can often open a non-resident bank account, sometimes even before you arrive or just after, maybe with just your passport. Some people need this early on for, say, a property deposit or even the visa application itself.
But there's a but, isn't there?
But non-resident accounts typically come with higher fees, monthly maintenance fees, commissions on transfers, and sometimes more restrictions on what you can do, like setting up certain direct debits. They might also require you to physically go into the branch more often.
So the goal is to switch to a resident account as soon as possible.
Exactly. Once you have your Thai card proving your residency, you should go back to the bank and ask to convert your account to a resident one. Resident accounts usually have much lower fees, full online banking functionality, and are just generally easier to manage day to day.
And what do you typically need to open any account?
Your passport, proof of your address in Spain, like a rental contract or utility bill, proof of income or funds, like your pension statement, and crucially, that NIE number. Sometimes they also ask for a certificate of non-residency initially, which you might get from the consulate back home or sometimes from the police or foreigner's office in Spain. It can feel like a bit of an administrative loop sometimes.
Okay. One last piece of admin for this section, driving. If you bring your car or want to drive in Spain long term.
Right. Your foreign driving license, say, from the US, UK, Canada, is generally only valid for the first 6 months after you officially become a resident in Spain.
Only 6 months, then what?
Then you need to exchange it for a Spanish license, assuming Spain has a reciprocal agreement with your home country, which it does for many.
Do you have to take the Spanish driving test?
Usually, no, not for a standard car license, what they call Class A and B. For those, it's typically a direct exchange, lots of paperwork, a medical check, pay a fee, but no driving or a theory test is required.
Oh, that's good news.
It is. However, if you have licenses for commercial vehicles, like trucks or buses, Class C or D, you usually do have to pass a practical driving test, and sometimes a theory test too, even if there's an agreement.
And even the simple exchange can have weirdly specific
Oh
requires.
yeah, bureaucracy loves details. We saw one source mention the requirement for Argentinian licenses, for example. They need to provide an official certificate of legality and antiquity for their license, which then has to be, you guessed it,
Legalized and apostilled.
exactly, legalized and apostilled with the Hague stamp. It just proves that you need to check the exact requirements for your specific country's license well before that 6-month deadline is up. Don't assume it's simple.
Okay, so the takeaway here is high financial bar for the visa, coupled with meticulous, time-consuming, and potentially expensive administrative hurdles, both before and immediately after you arrive. Preparation is everything.
Absolutely. And that leads us nicely into the two other massive pillars you need to get right for a stable retirement: healthcare and taxes. Let's start with healthcare. Spain's public system has a great reputation, right?
It does internationally recognize, but who gets to use it and when? That seems to be the key question.
It depends entirely on your status. If you're an EU citizen, it's relatively straightforward using your European health insurance card or specific arrangements. For UK citizens, post-Brexit, things are a bit different but still manageable for retirees.
How does it work for UK retirees?
UK pensioners can usually access the Spanish public healthcare system by registering something called an S1 form. You get this form from the UK government, registered in Spain with the Social Security Office, Instituto Nacional de Seguridad Social, or INSS, and essentially the UK continues to cover your state healthcare costs in Spain.
Okay, so that's sorted for Brits with the S1. But what about our main focus, the non-EU citizen coming in on that non-lucrative visa?
Right. For them, the rule is absolute and non-negotiable for the visa application itself. You must have private health insurance
Mandatory private insurance. For how long?
for the entire duration of the initial visa, so for the first full year. And it can't just be any basic travel insurance.
What are the requirements for that insurance?
It needs to be comprehensive. The Spanish consulates are very specific about this. The policy must cover all the risks that are typically covered by the Spanish public health system. Crucially, most consulates strongly prefer or even insist on policies that have no copays or deductibles.
No copays at all. Why?
The thinking is that if you have significant copays or a high deductible, you might hesitate to seek treatment, or it doesn't represent truly comprehensive coverage. They want assurance you won't potentially fall back on the public system or be unable to afford care. So, sin copagos without copays is the gold standard they look for.
Okay. Comprehensive, no copays. What does that kind of policy cost?
It varies a lot based on age and pre-existing conditions, of course. For younger, healthier retirees, say under 65, you might find good policies for somewhere between €80 and maybe 220 per month per person.
That's not insignificant, but maybe manageable. What about for older retirees, say 70 plus?
This is where it can get really expensive. Premiums for comprehensive, no copay policies for people over 70 can easily jump to €350, 450, even €500 a month or more. Insurance companies see higher risk, obviously.
Wow, that's a major budget item just for the required insurance.
It absolutely is. However, the good news is that some Spanish insurance companies have developed specific plans targeting this market. We saw names like Nara Senior or Adeslas Seniors mentioned, which try to offer competitive rates while still meeting the strict visa requirements for older applicants. But you still need a budget for it carefully.
Okay, so you have this mandatory private insurance for the first year. How does a non-EU resident eventually get onto the Spanish public system, if at all?
It's basically a waiting game, and it depends on a couple of factors. First, age. If you are a legal resident over the age of 65 and you meet certain other criteria related to contributions or residency time, you might qualify for public health care access relatively quickly, maybe even immediately in some cases.
Might qualify, so it's not automatic even over 65.
Not always automatic straight away. It can depend on local interpretation and your specific history. But for most people who arrive on an NLV and are under 65, the standard path involves waiting.
Waiting how long?
Generally, after you have completed 1 full year of continuous legal residency in Spain, you become eligible to apply for something called the Convenio Especial.
Convenio Especial, what's that?
It's essentially a special agreement, a pay-in scheme. It allows legal residents who don't otherwise qualify for free public health care, because they haven't paid into the Spanish Social Security system, to access the public system by paying a monthly fee.
Ah, so you pay to get access. How much does that cost?
It's significantly cheaper than most comprehensive private plans. The fee is usually around 60 euros per month if you're under 65, and maybe around 157 euros per month if you're 65 or older. It gives you access to the public doctors, hospitals, etc.
Okay, so Convenio Especial after 1 year is an option. What about getting full free access like a Spanish citizen?
That generally comes later. Once you achieve long-term or permanent residency status, which usually happens after 5 years of continuous legal residency, you typically gain full access to the Spanish public healthcare system on the same basis as Spanish nationals.
So the timeline is year 1, mandatory private insurance, years 2 to 5, potentially use private insurance or pay into the public system via the Convenio Especial. After year 5, full public access likely granted.
That's a good summary of the typical path for an NLV holder, yeah.
Okay, that clarifies the healthcare journey. Now let's switch gears to the other big one, taxes. This sounds like where the dream can meet a potentially complex reality.
It definitely requires careful attention. The absolute key concept here is tax residency.
How do you become a tax resident in Spain?
It's primarily based on physical presence.
Uh-huh.
If you spend more than 183 days in Spain during a calendar year, that's basically half the year, plus 1 day, you are automatically considered a Spanish tax resident for that entire year.
More than 183 days. Okay. And what does being a tax resident mean?
It means you are legally required to declare and pay Spanish income tax on your worldwide income.
Worldwide income. So not just anything you happen to earn in Spain, but everything.
Everything. Your pension from back home, rental income from a property you still own overseas, interest or dividends from foreign bank accounts or investments, capital gains from selling assets anywhere in the world. It all becomes potentially taxable in Spain.
Wow. Okay. So how are things like pensions taxed?
Pensions, both state and private, are generally treated as regular taxable income in Spain. They get added to any other income you might have and taxed according to Spain's progressive income tax rates, which they call IRPF, Impuesto sobre la Renta de las Personas Físicas.
Progressive rates. What do those look like?
They start relatively low but climb quite steeply. For 2024 income, the rate started at 19% on taxable income to 12,450. Then it goes up in bands. 24% up to 20,000 euro, 30% up to 35,200, 37% up to 60,000, 45% up to 300,000, and then 47% on income over 300,000.
Okay. Those top rates are quite high. So a decent retirement income could push you into those middle brackets pretty easily.
Oh, absolutely. If you have, say, 40,000 in total taxable income as a couple, a significant chunk of that will be taxed at 30% or more, plus you have regional variations in tax rates too. Your overall effective tax rate could be higher than you might expect compared to, say, many U.S. states.
Which immediately raises the big fear, double taxation. If my pension is from the U.S. or U.K., will I end up paying tax on it there and in Spain?
Thankfully, no, usually not. Spain has double taxation treaties, DTTs, with many countries, including the U.S., U.K., Canada, and most of Europe. These treaties lay out rules to prevent you from being taxed twice on the same income.
How do they work in practice?
Generally, the treaty specifies where a particular type of income should be taxed. For income taxed in Spain, you can usually claim a credit for any tax already paid on that income in the source country, up to the amount of Spanish tax due. Or sometimes the income is taxed only in one country.
But I hear there's a really important and sometimes confusing distinction when it comes to pensions under these treaties. Public versus private pensions.
Yes, this is absolutely critical to understand, and it trips people up. It involves a concept often called exemption with progressivity.
Okay, exemption with progressivity. Sounds complicated.
It can be. Here's the gist. Many tax treaties specify that public pensions received for past government service, like civil servants, military, teachers in some cases, are often taxable only in the country that pays them, the source country.
So a U.S. federal pension might only be taxed in the U.S., not in Spain.
Correct. According to the U.S.-Spain treaty, that's generally the case.
Yeah.
That sounds great, right?
Yeah.
No Spanish tax on that income.
Yeah, seems like a win.
However, this is the with progressivity part. Even though that public pension income isn't taxed directly in Spain, it is still taken into account when calculating the tax rate that applies to your other income that is taxable in Spain.
Wait, so the tax-exempt income pushes your other income into a higher tax bracket?
Precisely. It's exempt from tax itself, but it increases the progressive tax rate applied to everything else, like withdrawals from your private IRA or rental income or interest. So it still impacts your overall Spanish tax bill.
Wow, okay. That's a subtle but potentially expensive detail. What about private pensions then, like a 401k or a UK SIPP?
Private pensions are generally treated differently under most treaties. Usually they are taxable in the country where you are resident. So if you're a tax resident in Spain, your private pension income from the US or UK would typically be fully taxable in Spain.
I see. So public pension may be taxed at source but affects Spanish rates. Private pension generally taxed in Spain.
That's the general rule of thumb. But you always need to check the specifics of the relevant double taxation treaty, as there can be exceptions. This is definitely an area where getting professional tax advice from someone familiar with both Spanish tax law and the specific treaty is almost essential.
Makes sense. Is there any good news on the Spanish tax front for retirees? Any allowances or reliefs?
Yes, definitely. Spain does offer some significant tax relief, especially based on age. Firstly, every resident taxpayer gets a general personal allowance, which was €5,550 for the 2024 tax year.
Okay, 5,550 are off your taxable income.
Correct. But then there are additional allowances based purely on age. If you're age 65 or over, you get an additional allowance of 11,150, bringing your total personal allowance to 6,704.
It seems the source might have slightly different figures. Let's clarify based on the outline.
Yes, the outline suggests a total of €6,700 for ages 65-74, which implies the base plus an age amount. And then if you were age 75 or older, it increases again to a total allowance of €8,100.
8,100 allowance if you're 75 plus. That's quite substantial.
It is. These age-related allowances can significantly reduce the taxable income for many retirees, lowering their overall tax burden quite effectively.
Okay, that's helpful. What about this wealth tax I sometimes hear about? Does Spain tax your total net worth every year?
Yes, Spain does have an annual wealth tax, Impuesto sobre el Patrimonio. As a tax resident, you are potentially liable for this tax on your worldwide assets, property, savings, investments, etc., above a certain threshold.
Worldwide assets? That sounds scary. What's the threshold?
The standard national threshold is actually quite high. There's a general tax-free allowance of $700,000 per person.
700,000. Okay, that's quite generous.
Yes. And on top of that, there's an additional exemption of up to $300,000 for the value of your main home in Spain.
So a couple owning a home could potentially have combined assets worth up to 1.4 million plus 300,000 for their home, so 1.7 million, before wealth tax even starts to bite at the national level.
Broadly speaking, yes. For most retirees, even those who are relatively comfortable, the wealth tax is unlikely to be an issue due to these high allowances. Also, some regions in Spain, like Madrid and Andalusia, have introduced measures to effectively eliminate the wealth tax by offering a 100% relief on the tax payable.
Ah, so it depends on where you live, too. Good to know. One final tax point. U.S. citizens. They have a unique situation, don't they?
They do. U.S. citizens and green card holders are unique in that they have to file U.S. taxes every year, regardless of where they live in the world.
So even living in Spain and being a Spanish tax resident, you still have to file with the IRS.
Correct. But the U.S.-Spain Double Taxation Treaty, along with U.S. tax provisions like the Foreign Tax Credit using IRS Form 1116 and potentially the Foreign Earned Income Exclusion, Form 2555, though less relevant for passive retirement income, are designed to prevent double taxation.
So you use those forms to tell the IRS about the taxes you paid in Spain?
Essentially, yes. You can claim a credit on your U.S. tax return for the income taxes you've paid to Spain on the same income.
Yeah.
In most cases, because Spanish tax rates on middle incomes can be relatively high, the foreign tax credit often eliminates any actual U.S. tax liability for retirees living in Spain, but you still have the obligation to file.
Okay. So healthcare and taxes both require understanding the rules based on your status, planning ahead, and likely getting some professional advice, especially on the tax side.
Absolutely. These are not areas where you want to make assumptions or mistakes. They really demand that learner mindset you mentioned earlier, and meticulous planning is key. Hashtag tag outro.
We've covered a lot of ground here. The dream versus the reality, the costs, the visa maze, healthcare, taxes.
It's definitely a deep dive. And to summarize, I think Spain genuinely offers this incredible balance, right? High quality of life, amazing culture, generally better affordability than many places back home.
Especially if you're smart about location, looking beyond maybe Madrid and Barcelona to places like Valencia or the coasts, or even those super affordable rural gems.
Exactly. And it's a big but, making the move successfully demands real commitment to preparation. You can't just wing it.
No. The non-lucrative visa's financial bar is high and rigid. The need for that specific type of private health insurance right from day one is non-negotiable.
And the administrative burden, the bureaucracy we talked about,
Yeah.
it's not just annoying, it's a real measurable cost in terms of time, stress, and often money for translations, legalizations, maybe hiring help.
I think one of the strongest takeaways from reading those expat accounts is that realization, while the headline cost of living might seem lower, you often discover these unexpected, sometimes mandatory costs hidden in the process.
Yeah, it's not just the visa fees or the cost of getting documents apostilled. It's often the realization that paying for a good jester or a knowledgeable tax advisor isn't a luxury. It's practically a necessity to get things right and avoid bigger problems down the line.
And you found one final, perhaps slightly sobering example of an unexpected mandatory cost in the sources, something related to cultural norms.
Yes, it was quite pragmatic, but important. Several sources mention the unexpected need for many expats, particularly older retirees, to purchase often quite expensive prepaid funeral plans.
Funeral plans. Why is that a mandatory cost?
It stems from Spanish cultural and practical norms around death. Burials or cremations often have to happen very quickly, sometimes within 24 to 48 hours. Payment is usually required immediately, upfront.
Wow, that's fast.
It is. And if a family isn't prepared, they can suddenly face a huge immediate cash demand at a very difficult time. So many expats find that prepaying for a comprehensive funeral plan becomes almost a necessary, albeit unexpected, part of their financial planning in Spain, just for peace of mind and to avoid burdening family.
So it shifts the focus from just sunny retirement planning to some very practical end-of-life logistics and costs.
It does, and it reinforces that point.
Yeah.
The initial investment in getting solid specialist advice on visas, healthcare, taxes, even these practicalities, is very often the most cost-effective decision you can make in the long run.
Okay, so let's leave our listeners with a final thought to chew on, connecting the finances back to the lifestyle dream.
If you're drawn to Spain, like so many are, primarily because of that lower cost of living figure, the crucial question to ask yourself is this.
Are you truly factoring in all the costs? Not just rent and groceries, but the price of navigating the bureaucracy, the potentially high cost of mandatory private health insurance tailored for seniors, the ongoing need for professional advice, and even these less obvious requirements like funeral planning.
Because the Spanish retirement dream is absolutely real, and it's wonderful for many. But the price of entry isn't just paid in euros for tapas and sunshine. It's paid in meticulous preparation, patience, and acknowledging the full financial and administrative reality of making that dream happen.